for grilling, if you could call it that. In St. Joseph, in the last few days, we have had a fairly acute water shortage. And while some might say, oh my goodness, that is bad timing, in a sense it isn't. Because we've worked hard to try to settle the water issues, and it's important that when these things arise, that you have a unique opportunity to be able to ask us what went wrong. And so today we have a few ministers with us who, if there are questions that you wish to direct towards their portfolio, perhaps housing, Minister Sutherland is here, Minister Bradshaw is here. Minister Bradshaw is responsible for public works. She's responsible for road infrastructure, something that is, I know, of tremendous interest to you. She's also responsible for water. And while she's not here yet, a number of senior, she's here now? She's on her way. A number of senior technical people from her ministry, including the permanent secretary, are here so that they can deal with the technical matters. The Minister of Housing is here so that if there are any issues related to housing, that he would have an opportunity to hear your questions and to be able to field answers to them. This is, as I said, not a formal setting. We don't have any chairman. So I guess that means that I have to be responsible for order. Joining me, of course, and the Prime Minister will be Deputy Prime Minister Santee Bradshaw when she comes. Roy? We've just determined that you are the chair. Good. So let me say that this is not a night for long speeches from any of us at this end. This is an opportunity for us to hear you, for us to listen. And let me say that neither the Prime Minister or myself or any of our colleagues are at all afraid of criticism. Criticism is that thing which sharpens us in our service to the people. And so if there are any issues, I don't want anybody here to feel that because they know me, they like me, that they should treat me as the MP with any kid's gloves. They're difficult questions to be asked, and we expect it because these are genuinely difficult times. So without any more commentary from me, I'd like to introduce the Prime Minister so that she can say a few opening remarks. If Minister Bradshaw is here by then, I'll offer her that opportunity, but if not, we'll jump right into today's proceedings. Prime Minister?
Thank you, Adrian. We are jumping straight into the proceedings. The first thing I'd like to do, those in the back, come forward, because the one thing we want to do is to change Barbados from a place where people come in and sit in the back row. We belong in the front row. Come forward. Come. We belong in the front row. We're in the back row, people. You know what I'm saying? We fill up all these seats in the front row. First of all, let me thank all of you for coming out. We really should have had this session in April, but the day that it was intended was obviously a day of extreme inclement weather, and therefore we had to postpone it. The AG has already given you some background, but let me contextualize it even further. When we came to the people in January, I determined and said to you that we would do a few things, that we would strengthen our accountability by ensuring that we engage with people directly, that we would rub shoulders again, and that we would want people from parishes, nothing to do with political branch meetings, but just citizen engagement. And if you recall, the charter that was passed by our parliament when we became a parliamentary republic on the 30th of November last year spoke to the issue of active citizenship. This is what active citizenship must feel and look like, along with a number of other things that we are putting in place. In the ideal circumstance, we rub shoulders within 24 hours of the parish speaking, but the rain was to have its play. We are now really in the month of St. John, because we are using the rollout of months for parishes that we used with We Gathering before the pandemic so abruptly interrupted everything. And therefore, in the month of May, the end of this month, we go to the parish of St. John, we rub shoulders, and we meet with the people of St. John. In June, I believe that is the month of St. George. And therefore, in the middle of June, we'll be coming, or to the end of June, depending, to the people of St. George. And we'll do every month with the exception of December. Why? Because you're all going to be too busy taking down the house and putting it back up in December and singing carols and baking and doing all the things that you do to worry about these other matters. But January to November, Barbados must work for the citizens of its parishes. Secondly, we made a commitment, and we're working on it, that we will operationalize people's assemblies. And I want to contextualize both, because we started rubbing shoulders when we were in opposition, we're still rubbing shoulders. We started people's assemblies when we were in opposition. We had the Thorne Commission that has literally had extensive consultations across the country and that have come up with recommendations. Cabinet has taken the recommendations, and we're now in a process with Minister Humphrey's ministry to be able to have them structure it out so that the drafting can be done by the Attorney General's chambers, and that we can then get to the point of being able to ensure that ordinary citizens can be involved in certain other key aspects of how government functions in this country. And we would have done this regardless of the outcome. But having had a comprehensive mandate from the people of Barbados, we feel even more determined to ensure that we create this space for persons as far as possible. With that backdrop, I done talk. I want to hear you. This is a conversation. It's informal. We have public officials here, as you heard from the AG. We don't have all of them here, but we pretty much know that some of the issues that will come up, and we've asked those public officials, and I want to thank them for coming out this evening. We know it is not 8 to 4, but we understand that you too appreciate that our duty is to serve the people who pay our salaries every month and who therefore deserve to have their issues addressed by the highest levels of both the political and public service of this country. So with those few words, Mr. Morris, over to you. Mr. Morris is Director of Citizen Engagement and Media Services, and therefore is at the forefront. Every day I get letters from all over, predominantly Barbadians, but from all over the world. And we try to answer all of them. We try to do the investigations for most of them. Obviously, there's another constitutional role of an ombudsman, but in many instances, what people want can be handled by the Prime Minister's office in many instances. And I thank Mr. Morris for leading us with that citizen engagement that we have been able to do to make your government more related to you and to make us more responsive wherever we can to you. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good night, everyone. This is a very simple process. As the Prime Minister said, this is your night. You have your representatives here. You have the officials from the ministries, the technical people here who can answer questions directly. And we want you to make sure you engage them. Do not let the opportunity pass. With that said, let's keep it orderly, but this is the country. This is rural Barbados. All we do is orderly. But this is the country. This is rural Barbados. All we do is orderly. Right. And we want to be through by 8:30. But remember, this is just the start, so you will have other opportunities. Even though it's per parish, I don't think that Prime Minister will not engage you if you ended up in St. John later this month. Now, yes. Tonight as well, we are also streaming, so even though it is a parish affair, the whole of the country is watching what is happening, so that we're setting the example again tonight. And we will review everything and then as we go into St. John and the other parishes, then may make changes, we will make changes depending on what occurs. So there's a mic in the middle. Feel free to approach the mic and make your points and ask your questions, and just keep it as brief as you can, and we will go from there. So we already have one person on the feet. And then Dolores will go. We can go next.
Good evening. My name is Lorna Knight, and I live in Erie Hill, St. Joseph. I was born there 66 years ago. But you said keep it slow, right? When you was coming here, Prime Minister, I think you take Andrew's factory and come up. But coming through the cut rock there, you have some painting on the wall that was tourist attraction from in the 70s. I would like to see all that vine take down and that wall paint back so we could have tourist attraction back there. When you're going on the left-hand side now and you're going in, and you're going into Paris Hill, the road is dropped there. And then you get to St. Anne's now, you're going to make straight up, you're going to make a left turn into Retreat Corner that would take you to Industry. That road is so bad. And then when you're going down, the road there needs cutting off. I had to ask them there last week, and I need that road to be done. When you're coming down that hill now, the road is break down so bad that they have cans put there. Underneath there, it have a tunnel. Underneath there, I am the person who called the nation and let them see what was going on. We need to get up and let our voice be heard. And when you call the Baptist Water Authority, I would like to know who is going to fix the road after the Baptist Water Authority. Because my daughter is a nurse at the hospital. She have to travel there, and it destroyed her car. So I heard Mrs. Sutherland said, and Tony Moore said, they want their paradise, and they want a paradise in St. Joseph. And when you get up to Lamens now, there's a pavilion there that soon be breaking down. And I want, you got all-timers starting early. Call right now, sometimes my head don't work too well. So I want to go there between 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock and get some craft doing, and we can have some exhibition, and we could utilize that there. That is all I want. I want to see the road fixed properly, grass cut, and widen the road. That is what I want, Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. What's your name again? Ms. Knight. Good to hear you, and I thank you for opening the ballin in this historic occasion. Down the wicket. Mr. Tudor, who is Deputy Chief Technical Officer, as well as Mr. Patrick, who I believe is one of the gentlemen supervisors in charge of out here. I think you've heard the names of the roads, Mr. Patrick. Mr. Tudor, you have all of them? Okay. And let me say that we're going to, over the course of these things, get everybody telling us about every road. But we will make a genuine assessment according to need, because as our parents taught us, we must first satisfy needs before wants. So wants, this is among the worst that we will do. We will start, and what we've been trying to do, and which is good, we now have a major program of rehabilitation of roads in the Scotland district about to start, and that program will last for the next 3 to 4 years. It's $230 million, and a lot of the roads, in fact, the first 2 roads are in St. Joseph, aren't they? Which one? Vaughan's Road, number 2, and the other one is St. Andrew taking the other one to start. Shorey Village, and we're literally going through, because the truth is, when you look at the roads in the Scotland district, when you look at the erosion, when you look at the movement of the land, there has been a considerable need, and we've not had any major road works in this part of the world. Mr. Tudor, for how long? Give me how much? How much? That, for a very long time, the same long, very, very long. So that's why I tell you, you will soon find out I've renamed myself and my government Electrolux, because all we're doing is cleaning up, cleaning up, cleaning up. But I would like to build and grow too. So help us clean up and we'll move to the next stage. With respect to the mural, I'll let the AG speak to it because it's a constituency issue, and I'll let him consult with you, because ultimately it depends on what the people of the parish want, and when it comes to those types of things. AG?
Thank you, Prime Minister, and let me say that Ms. Knight is my whip. She's on the calling program there every day talking about Airy Hill, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to deal with this. This constituency, this parish, has had a tremendous amount of challenges with our infrastructure going back now maybe 2 generations. That particular road mentioned by Ms. Knight, the condition of the road itself requires it to be resurfaced, but unfortunately part of the area has broken away and is unsafe. The program that we had agreed to was that we would finish the gabion work in Coconut Grove and in Fruitful Hill first. Now, let me say this. I think, unfortunately, we want everything done at the same time. And that's a human thing. But there are still some logistical challenges that we have been faced with. At the time when Airy Hill broke away, we had already begun the work at Fruitful Hill, and the Prime Minister has seen that, and in fact gave directions that we try to bring on more people to get that gabion work done. And also we needed desperately to do Coconut Grove. So the plan was, as soon as the gabion team was finished in either Coconut Grove or Fruitful Hill, we would move it to Airy Hill, because it's not just a question of putting back up a road. MTW has recognized that that whole corner actually needs widening, and what you've referred to as a tunnel is really drainage, correct? So they've indicated to me that they plan on building a whole new culvert so as to strengthen it and make sure it can last us for another 50 years. So the work at Airy Hill, it is not insignificant, and you know, Ms. Knight, that goes down really far. That is a deep gully. No need. But the point I'm making, so we agree, it is a very deep gully. So it's going to require an extensive amount of gabion work. I don't know if Mr. Tudor wants to explain it somewhat, but I've been reassured by the team that as soon as they finish Coconut Grove, they will go down to Airy Hill and get started on that major work of restoration. Part of the good news, though, is that in the project that we're doing with the Chinese, the entire stretch of road from Airy Hill going right up to the corner of Braggs is going to get a complete makeover and is going to be completely resurfaced. You mentioned the pavilion at Lamings. Last year, a decision had to be taken to shut that pavilion down, and I think you know why. It is simply unsafe. I've seen it. I took the minister there. It has holes in the floor. You have to be fearful that if you step on it while you're doing the ballroom dancing or square dancing, that you will literally fall under the building. It is unsafe. The National Sports Council has agreed to build a new pavilion. We're not talking about repairing what is there. It is irreparable. Sports Council has agreed to build a new pavilion for us at Lamings, and I think it's intended to be slightly bigger, right, Dwight? Intended to be slightly bigger. Not we can't afford to do the things that you would like. Okay. Well, the Prime Minister is only asking that you appreciate that while things will come, they are not always going to come at the time that we want them to come. But I can assure you that a new pavilion at Lamings, it has already been designed, and the National Sports Council intends to give us a new pavilion at that facility. So, yes, go ahead.
This night, you have a new clinic in Horace Hill that you just get a St. Joseph Outpatients Clinic. You have also the new community center in Bathsheba that you've gotten. Hold on, we've got the investment in water, Mr. Seeley, yes? That, Mr. Morris, Percy, that was supposed to come from Vineyard to Mount Pleasant, so you're going to get it. But there are some other areas in the country, and the exercise of Parish Speaks is going to begin to right-size all, because like with any family, if you feed the first 2 children and you don't feed the next 3 or 4, what's going to happen? Ruction in the house. So, no, let's be clear. So everybody can get a chance. But I'm not going to excite impossible expectations, because we committed to the city of Bridgetown to be able to do the pavilion there for them, uptown, because those people also have issues and have asked for it for a considerable period of time. So all I'm trying to do is to tell you, yes, it will come. The government's term is only less than 4 months in. I have another, what? How many more months to go? Another 56 months, and if I was to do a Frondel store, another 59 months. So rest assured they're going to come. But the major thing you're getting also, we've spent a lot of money getting the water with the Vineyard project and Mount Pleasant to get it here. We have new reservoirs going up in Castle Grant. If anybody goes up there, you'll see a brand new water reservoir going up there, replacing what has been there for decades. How long, Mr. Leslie? Sorry? That has replaced an almost 100-year-old reservoir at Castle Grant. We also are doing housing at Ginger Works there, and making sure that people get that as well. So I'm telling you, St. Joseph, I don't know that St. Joseph has it so good since Grantley gone. That's the truth. But having said that, I also appreciate that you went through a difficult period where nothing was done for a long period of time, and where the climate crisis as well as the difficulties with the water distribution have compounded your experience, and you began to feel as though you were outsiders in your own land. So all I want us to do is to recognize that we are moving, that we are making sure that in the middle of an IMF program, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of all of these things, we still have to make sure that we have buses to get people to and from St. Joseph. We still have to make sure that we have garbage trucks to collect everything. So we're doing all of these national things while we're doing local things as well. Okay? So, But I don't know why you don't. So let me tell you, this lady who I have here is going to come right next to you and make sure that you, because I learned, for example, that the people in Venture number 3 haven't got the black can, where others in Venture get them. So anybody who has, everybody who has not gotten a garbage can yet, just hold tight. The entire country is going to get. Okay? Thank you. And welcome the Deputy Prime Minister, who I told you was delayed in traffic. Thank you.
Just one last thing that I didn't get to mention. The question of the paintings at Paris Hill. And, people have been saying, Mr. Marshall, why we don't paint them up and so on. No, let me just make this clear. All over the world, murals have taken on the form of art. And the discussion that we've had about the murals at Paris Hill is how can we preserve this exciting art that is unique in Barbados for another 100 years. So they've said to us, don't go scrubbing the murals with soap and water to get off the dirt. Don't think that you can go and paint over the orange bits and the yellow bits because they seem to be fading. So the discussion that has to happen is not about painting up those murals to make them bright again, but to find a way to preserve those murals so that they last 3 and 4 other generations. It's absolutely unique, and you know that instinctively, just like you paint a house, you want to come and put on some paint, but the recommendation is that we don't treat those murals in that way.
I can speak to this as well, sorry, because as Minister of Culture, we have to be able, art preservation is a dedicated skill, and I certainly hope it will be done. Those of you who knew the Eagle Hall Post Office would have seen that the last government just went and painted over the mural at the Eagle Hall Post Office just before the election of 2018. I wouldn't be one of those people who would have said that they painted it over because they had a picture of my grandfather. But suffice it to say that what they did was wrong. And there has to be, in copyright, there's something called your intellectual property rights in copyright, but there's also something called a moral right. And a moral right means that you have the right to be declared as the person who was responsible for the creation of that particular piece of work. And that is how much the law recognizes that the integrity of a person creating something ought to be respected and ought to be given legal protection. But at a different level, and at the aesthetic level, as the AG said, we accept that we're going to have some restoration of murals. As you know, one of the things that we did to keep the heads of artists above water when they could not get any money during COVID, and a lot of artists just did not earn, is that we tried to do murals across Barbados. We tried to do digital concerts and to have people reach out to others. So all of these things are done, and we will make sure that Paris Hill mural is properly restored. Yeah, it can be properly restored. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Morris?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, state your name and then proceed.
Andrew Dixon is my name. Good night, everybody. Good night, Madam PM. I came barefooted for purpose because the guys were on the pasture playing, and they came barefoot. So I decided to take off my shoes to come along with them. I saw on the invitation, special invitation to the youth. And the youth have a very close place in my heart, Madam Prime Minister. And I saw, during the COVID, some young ladies were training very hard as far as sports were concerned. And these guys were training very hard, and as far as education and the sports is concerned, to me, a lot of their dreams were shattered, Madam PM, and I want to ask you to speak to the young on my right and the young in the back who has almost 20 or 30 more on the pasture. What provisions are being put in place for the young people who were probably training before, who barely missed the mark as far as career is concerned, and those who probably had to do a resit in upper 5th and 6th form where the classes online were not as kosher as the face-to-face. So I just want you to speak to the youngsters as far as the sports and the education is concerned.
I don't know if Minister Griffith is here. Okay, he's on his way. Andrew, thanks very much. And let me say that I really appreciate your advocacy on behalf of young people going back to when they first met you. And the sign of solidarity, you're going barefoot. I just hope you don't stop your toe, all right? The last 2 years has, we as adults think that we've had it rough, but the last 2 years have been a huge challenge for all of our young people in every way, in terms of education, in terms of even their ability to go outside and to get involved in sports. In fact, you'll know that among the last things that we freed up in terms of the COVID directives has been sport and activity. So as an administration, we keenly feel the challenges that our young people feel. But there's, in my view, a bright light that is ahead of them. And if you allow me to speak specifically about St. Joseph, because this is St. Joseph Talks, I'm sure that those young men and women on the field will have noticed the blue columns that are laying alongside the pasture over there. And you will have noticed that for the last few months, some infrastructure work has been going in. You see, at 6:30, they have to come off the field. And that is where some of the problems begin. And we want to make sure that sporting as an opportunity for our young people is a real opportunity. And at this location, we're going to be seeing lights. And you know, when we talk about lights and so on, I think people think it's just about sports. But one of the things that we've been considering over not just this administration, but from as far back as when we were in government before, the importance of having our young people engaged in wholesome sporting activity cannot be understated, because if they're not involved in sports, Andrew, young men and women, they're going to get involved in something else. And so when we were last in government, we took a decision to put lights at a large number of playing fields. But when we lost the elections in 2008, that project completely went through the windows. We've reintroduced it. And so we're going to have lights at Grantley Adams. We're going to have lights, I think, across all of the major playing fields in Barbados over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. Some of them, I think, have already started, right, Dwight? In addition to that, we will also be having mini stadia. And again, Grantley Adams is earmarked for one of those mini stadia. It is just going to be bleachers, what are called stands, that are going to be set up at a convenient location in the field so that we can actually have meaningful sporting, whether it's friendly activity or competitive activity. So for those of our young people who are keenly involved in sports, I can say to you that we're trying to give sport and activity in St. Joseph a new lease on life. But, Andrew, and you and I always talk plain, I don't want the Prime Minister to know that St. Joseph has hard courts at St. Elizabeth and on Horse Hill and at Grantley Adams School and at Lamings, because she will say, well, how come one constituency got so many hard courts? The truth is that if you go down Horse Hill now, you and I both know that the hard court that is opposite the parish church is no more used as a place where people park after funerals. The one in St. Elizabeth Village, that has hard courts and lights, and it is not regularly used. Lamings, hard courts and lights, again, not regularly used. So in terms of sporting activity, and Prime Minister, you and I haven't spoken about it, but it's not just a question of building new facilities, because the government has made a significant investment in facilities in other parts of this constituency. And so we have to get a large number of our young people interested in and involved in sports again. We're going to continue to build out, but we can build it, but that doesn't mean that they're going to come. So part of it is going to go further than just building these new facilities. We have to find ways and means of getting our young men and women back into netball again, back into basketball and so on. We have the facilities there, so there's no excuse. I'm hearing now that I know that we're putting greater emphasis on road tennis. So as a government, we are certainly carrying that weight. We're carrying that water, but we need our communities now to meet us halfway, because we can have the best Minister of Sports in the world, but unless in our communities we begin to get our young people back out there, a good Minister of Sports is going to just be window dressing. But I'm happy that you've expressed these interests, and I think that what we are doing is going to help to take our young people forward in terms of sporting activity.
Thank you, AG.
If I just may, I think the key is the resumption of mass-based training in youth and sports across the country. That's what I did when I started the Ministry of Youth Affairs in 1995. And we trained thousands of people every year, to the point that the first time many kids went to university was as a result of being able to access scholarships. We started the process, and in fairness to the former Minister of Sports, John King, who is not here, that process was started, and as the AG said, COVID came and interrupted it. We're in that period of time where we're now walking back and feeling our way. And the truth is that he's absolutely correct. You are the families that are going to have to encourage your children to get active again, whether it is in artistic or sporting pursuits. And the role of government is to work with the cultural community and sporting groups to make sure that the programs can be there. You train people, but as we train people, we're not only training people just so. 90% of them will become an audience and therefore appreciate the rudiments of the particular sport or art form, and the other 10% will move to the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. And that's what we want to do. Why? Because sportsmen and artists simply are global citizens. Nobody really gives them any pressure. Once you have a certain level of proficiency, they want to see you. Jamaica sprinters can go anywhere. Bajan cricketers can pretty much go anywhere. It's up to you to determine what your future can be. Our role is to provide, as you say, the AG said, not just the facilities, but the training. Your role is to ensure that the children have the appetite to want to be involved in wholesome and strong and spirited activity, be it in culture or sports. Thank you.
Before the next participant, guys, there's still some seats over on my left, so feel free to move over. Proceed.
Good night. My name is Sharon Almiers. Madam Prime Minister, you would have spoken about Ginger Works. I don't know if Mr. Marshall can spread some light on Ginger Works and the process and where it has gotten. Some persons would have received letters in December saying that they were successful in acquiring, getting land, and NHC would reach out and let them know when they have to come and choose the plot. Since then, you have not heard anything, have been inquiring, and NHC said they're waiting to find out what's going on. Then inquired further, was told that they were trained. It was at the process of being approved at Town and Country Planning. Checked on it, it has been approved. So I'm just wondering to find out, like, what's the process, because then when you acquire the land, you still have to go through Town and Country Planning now to get a plan approved and stuff like that. So just want to know if it's a time frame or so that you could put your business in place.
Thank you for that question. I'm sorry that the work at Ginger Works has taken this long. I can tell you that the subdivision has been approved at town planning. The challenge that National Housing Corporation has had is that they've had to change up the boundaries slightly. If you visit Ginger Works, you would see that there's an area that on paper it looks as though it was good for construction of a house, but when you actually physically look at it, it slopes away and is considered not suitable. The minister and I visited Ginger Works 2 Sunday evenings ago with Mr. Lord, with the general manager, and the permanent secretary. And so they've indicated and they've said that they're just changing the lot sizes in, I think, probably 2 instances. And as soon as that is approved by town planning, they'll be able to say to those individuals who or sorry, which particular lot they're going to get. Now, of course, I know this will excite an expectation that we have a lot of lots in St. Joseph, and let me say that's not the case. But the government has acquired 13 acres of land at Ginger Works. The part that is being done now is a very small section consisting of only about 11 or 12 lots. 5 of them are dedicated to ELSA relocations. So we'll have about 6 or so, and those are the 6 that you're talking about. But if you come down Ginger Works, on the right side of the road, that 10-acre parcel, that strip of land that you'll see on the right, it has been acquired by government for housing, and I'm not sure when they're going to actually start the work on that, but I can tell you that some of those lots are going to be allocated for rental of house spots. Another set of those lots will be allocated for purchases, and then working with the Chinese project, I think the plan is to build a number of quads and duplexes on part of it. So you will actually see that 10-acre parcel, and of course the Prime Minister wants us to reserve a few, well, some of it for agricultural purposes. So we're hoping to have a mixed development there. I can't give you a timeline for the rest of that, but our commitment to build 10,000 houses, well, the minister is saying more than 10,000, you will see Ginger Works being an important part, and a very important part of housing solutions for St. Joseph. So I hope that we'll be able to get to market with the rest of those lots in the, well, certainly very near future. Well, you're not, believe me, you're not going to get that old. This is something, as your MP, I'm telling you, I'm really pushing, really pushing to get the larger area subdivided so that we can actually start building houses. And the minister can tell you, and the Prime Minister, that I've made it quite clear that while we would like to see nicely paved roads and so on and that will happen, my preference is that as soon as we can get some roads cut, I would like to see people starting to build. The roads will come. Okay, so I'm pushing this with all of my energy.
All right, thank you. Good evening, St. Joseph. Thank you, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Member of Parliament. Today we had a pretty interesting debate with respect to acquisition of land. And while that dealt with renewable energy, this government has focused its energies not only on renewable energy but on agriculture. And the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, we intend to push all the frontiers. We have land allocated for agriculture, and you heard your MP spoke about Ginger Works and the dual purpose of the 13 acres that we will acquire. We have land allocated for renewable energy, but what he didn't say to you, and that's why I took the opportunity, I know the Prime Minister would probably want to get involved here too. We would like the young lady, what's your name? Chernell. We are reaching the stage, Ms. Mears, in our history whereby we want every single person who deserves to have a home to own a home. Not to rent a home, but to own a home. And the Prime Minister articulated today when we visited Queen's Park to look at a model house from Guyana, hardwood housing. That fits acutely with the Bajan vernacular, the chattel house concept. And we intend to build out Ginger Works. You heard me speak about 10,000 houses, and the Prime Minister will say to you, we can build. We want to push the envelope. It's a stretch target, and I said today, commitment for results allows us as ministers to put ourselves as vulnerable targets to you. We believe we can build 20,000 houses with the availability of land across this country. And we want to do that because we want each and every one of our citizens to own a home. I heard you mention we can't wait too late, and that's true. We are hoping we can get to the development of Ginger Works and the Planning Gains land within the next year. So we can start this year to develop, do all the necessary legal work to acquire the land through Planning Gains, and thereafter install the sites and services, which should take roughly about 6 months, but we are trying to get down that time. That's what we are talking about, efficiency and raising the barrier, whereby it took us 6 months over the last 5 years, 10 years, to have our sites and services procured. And say sites and services, water, roads, road infrastructure and stuff like that. We want to reduce that time. So Ginger Works will be with you in year 2, the year 2023 to 2024, once we continue to develop these sites. And we recognize there's a need for housing, not only in rural Barbados, but in the urban corridors. So I am confident with the work that we are doing presently at the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, and of course National Housing Corporation. We will get to you in the year 2022, 2023. You will have the opportunity to own your own home, and you'll have options. Hardwood housing, I'm not sure what type we'll bring there, but we have options thanks to our Prime Minister, who has reached out to Guyana, and we know what is happening in the world today. Clap for that, because she has brought to us many options for housing. And you can determine if you want a metal house, if you want a hardwood house, or if you want a wall structure. That never happened before. So I'm saying to you, there is a lot on the horizon. I'm very optimistic and I'm positive that you will own your home in the very near future and not distant future.
As you spoke about NHC, as a younger person in 2017 trying to get housing for me and my 2 children, I applied in 2017, never heard back anything. Mr. Coppin at NHC can tell you I made him miserable, but it's like you try your best. You heard people since you went and applied, got housing, so you're wondering, is something wrong with my application? And then now, as you will know, housing in Barbados is not always affordable. So you try to find the most affordable route that you can still manage to have a comfortable lifestyle. But then when you apply in 2017, it comes 2022 and you still haven't heard anything. So I think something needs to be done in terms of the process of the applications. I don't know how it's done, but then when you call back, someone tells you, well, you should come and reapply every year. So I don't know what you can do now that you're there, but I think something needs to be done because I think it takes a bit too long.
Thank you. The Prime Minister said agree. And I agree as well, because my neck is on the block. When I picked up this ministry, the Prime Minister said to me 2 things. She wants me to build over 10,000 houses, and she wants me to address the backlog of applicants. And to tell the public the real truth, we have over 25,000 applicants in terms of backlog. I'm talking about like yourself from in 2017, those persons. And before then, years and years and years. And what we're doing, we have a project, we have a team, and I'm proud to report that we have started a project. And I said to the Prime Minister, within a week time, we will be addressing that backlog. And let me say how we will address it. The Prime Minister has said to me, we're not just going to tell the public we are going to address it. How are we going to address it? We will categorize persons in the income brackets. Those who are unemployed, those persons who are earning between 1,000 to 2,000 net income, those between 2,000 to 4,000 net income, and those above. The vulnerable, those persons who are earning below the threshold, we'll offer to you rent to own. And that is why we are pushing the envelope, and that's why we call it the silent housing revolution. Because why? When we build 20,000 houses, those 25,000 applicants, let's say 80% of those have the opportunity to own their own home in whatever bracket you fall within. So within a week time, we'll have that project completed and a paper will go to cabinet offering housing solutions in the various categories, and we will deliberate on it as a cabinet, and we'll come back to you, whether the Prime Minister or myself get back to you as to how we will address it with respect to housing solutions. But we are asking you, where possible, as a young homeowner, a potential young homeowner, set your sights not on rental, but owning your home and utilizing renewable energy on your roof to lower your costs. That gives you a level. Say you were renting for $1,000 a month, 2-bedroom, 600 square foot house. With renewable energy on your rooftop, that lowers the cost of electricity. But you can also benefit from that because you have a 20-year plan where you can feed into the grid and sell electricity back in layman terms, and that lowers your costs. So you, net in effect, will be gaining. So don't just set your sights on owning a home, but I want you to utilize renewable energy. We have a project that we have commissioned that over 50,000 small homes, around 600 square foot to 800 square foot, should utilize photovoltaic. And that is empowering our citizens, giving them a stake in our development. So I just want to share that with you and let you know there is a solution in the short term. Within a week or two, we should have that project completed where the backlog has been identified and categorized, and we will put you into the income bracket and get back to you to give you the options, either hardwood, a metal house, a house being built by NHC, or even a house being built by the private sector. Because we're in this not just as government, but we have partners, joint venture partners, and also the private sector housing projects have been counted into our 10,000 plus or 20,000 houses over the next 5 years. I hope I've answered you.
See if I can also add to that, because part and parcel of the issue is going to be accessibility for those who are not doing rent to own. The real reason why Dwight and them are coming to you with the backlog to clean up the applications and the backlog is that NHC almost has a form of cardiac arrest with respect to the applications and the backlog. No, I'm serious. Because if you keep adding applications and adding and adding and adding without cleaning the list, what do you have? So what we really need to know is that somebody in here may have put down their name 10 years ago. Since then, they get married. Since then, they gone away. Since then, something happened. Like you, thank you, madam. So that what he's really saying is that they're really starting to get and to come out. They will approach you, and you will have options. Of course, you'll have to say what you think you can afford or not afford, and then you'll have options as to what price range you want to be able, if you're buying, to look at a house at, and if you're renting to own, a different story. But the point is that government is looking at multiple solutions, because we can't only have a single approach to satisfying what in fact is over 20,000 people who want houses in this country. Now the last point I want to make is if you have a stable job, you work in the public service, you're a nurse, you're a teacher, you're a police officer, one of the things that motivated us is that you're being asked to pay for land at $20 and $25 a square foot. There is no way anybody earning $2,700 a month as a police constable can pay any mortgage with land starting at $20, $25 a square foot. So we've come into the market, we're reducing the cost of land, we're capping the cost of services going in for the land, we're looking at using the renewable energy as a way of not only de-risking you, but in some instances, depending on the model, in the case of Hope at Lancaster, effectively the people who will go there are not paying for the land and get the benefit of an $80,000 deduction because of assigning the roof to the development company. In other options, you will keep probably the roof, but you'll pay the addition, and when you finish paying back, you'll have that additional money probably coming into your pocket. So there are different options. I get frightened when Dwight talks about a metal house, because the house don't look like metal. All it is light gauge steel with the cladding. So that there is the hardwood option, there's the light gauge steel with the cladding option, there's the traditional concrete measure, there are the quads, there are the duplexes. There's even going to be a hex, which is the 3-story one. So there will be enough options. Our difficulty is, and Dale hit the nail on the head when he said that if you have only a sequential approach to construction, then it'll take long. But if you have a parallel approach where once you put in the basic roads and services and you can start doing the foundations and other things, then you have some overlap between the construction of the properties as well as the completion of the services. Because we know that at the end of the day, for those who are buying, you have to give a certificate of compliance to the person if the bank is going to release the final money to have the bank's security protected. So we are confident that this is one of the key ways we're going to fuel growth in the economy. It's going to create more jobs. That's why we started Construction Gateway, because we need to train more young people with skills. We don't have enough skills on island to do all that has to be done. We've said that we're going to use the patrimony of the country, the wind, the rain, the sea, the sun, in whatever ways, in order to give every Bajan homeowner a piece of the action with respect to renewable energy, because we know that persons, for example, who can't prove their income consistently for a bank or a credit union, when you can show what you can prove combined with what the roof can earn, may well become a viable option for you to get a mortgage and to be able. My advice to you, rent is dead money. I learned it early. From the time it come out your pocket, it dead. You pay that same dollars and you put it in a mortgage, you'll go back in 5-7 years. Your child needs something, you can borrow back against the house. Your mother's sick, you can borrow back against the house. You want a piece of equipment, you can borrow back against the house. And when we talk about financial literacy, it is because I don't want it for us alone, I want it for everybody. So we need to be able to train everybody to show why the same money spent as rent is dead, the same money spent as mortgage gives you an asset that you can pass on to your children or that you can sell or you can borrow against. Understood? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Before the next contribution, I just want to remind everyone that this is called St. Joseph Speaks. And we want to give as many people the opportunity to have their say. So when I ask ministers or other technical officials who respond to use the word economy, don't use more words than are absolutely necessary so we can get through more people. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Good night, Prime Minister, AG, and Minister of Public Works. My name is the Corsi Holder. I don't have to introduce myself because they'll know me well. I was the chairman for the last 3 or 4 elections. But what I want to find out, I think I heard that Mr. Patrick from MTW is here. And I want to find out what is going to happen to brides that's leading from the newly constructed reservoir down to Vilmo's place. When will that be repaired? Because the honest truth is, when you are driving in Brighton, you know, you're like in the Wild Wild West. You duck one hole and hitting 6. And the honest truth is, I don't think that road needs any patching. It needs scraping and repaving. Also, over there by Easy Hall is very bad. I was in Easy Hall over by Mark Maloney's place, just there for rally. And that road is terrible. The next thing is Lane Bridge. They came to Lane Bridge at election time and patch one part of Lane Bridge and leave the other part. When will you get back to Lane Bridge? All up to the supermarket. Tell us when we will get back there. And another thing, we're having some serious problems with transportation. Although, Prime Minister, you know, you mean well, that TAP program, some of the guys, I'm not saying all, some of those guys who supposed to be, when they come from town, they're supposed to come to Clement Rock, do the same route as the bus, transport board bus. But they don't do it. And if they do it, then when them coming from Blackman's to come back, they turn at Mayor's Corner and go down. Leaving poor pensioners now to go and catch the sins that you are avoiding the pensioners on. We need those problems addressed. The next thing is we having some problems with water again. No. We having some problems with water again. I'm saying it frequently up to this morning. We having some problems with water. And I would like all those problems addressed. Thank you very much.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to everyone here, Prime Minister, Attorney General, colleagues. Let me just say that I anticipated the questions and the concerns on roads and water, and I have worked with my team as well, because many of them have been both in relation to the Barbados Water Authority and the Transport Board, and also MTW, obviously have been at the center of a lot of the criticism over the last couple of years in starting works and not completing works. In some cases, it has been a disruption of water in this community as well. And I can tell you that the AG, even up to today, has been whispering in my ears constantly, sending me emails and text messages from the people of this constituency in relation to, in particular, the water issues. So I'm going to just ask the technical team, perhaps, Mr. Tudor, if you want to just address the issue of the roads first that the gentleman has raised. As you know, we're getting ready to do a number of roads in the Scotland district, generally, which of course encompasses St. Joseph. These things don't happen overnight, and I want to really appeal to the public to appreciate that we have spent a lot of time negotiating for loans and for financing to be able to do a very ambitious program in relation to road improvements across this country. That takes time in terms of making sure that those negotiations take place. But the Scotland district, and in particular the constituency of St. Joseph, has been high priority in terms of making sure that we can acquire those funds to be able to start those programs. And I think starting now at the end of June, that is the anticipation for when we will start some of the road works. Let me just say here that there will be disruption, because you can't get improvements if you don't have disruption. What we will try to do from our end is to try to mitigate the disruption that is going to come as a result of us being able to do these roads. But I'm saying to the public that we are doing our best on our end to not only get the financing to fix these long-standing problems, but equally we're going to have to work together in terms of the issues of dust and the congestion and the roads that you wanted to take but you can't now take. We're going to have to walk through those issues with you. But the commitment is there certainly from the Prime Minister, the MP and myself to make sure that we are able to address those concerns that you've had. I'll ask Mr. Tudor perhaps just to come forward, or you have the mic. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yes, good evening or good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. As the Prime Minister highlighted earlier, there is a $230 million program to rehabilitate the roads in the Scotland district. I must say that in my almost 40 years being in ministry, this is the first time we've ever had such a comprehensive program being undertaken. Now, thank you. In terms of how we came up with these roads, we got inputs from the representative, in this case, Minister Marshall. We also had inputs from the officers in the district, like Mr. Adamson, who was recently retired, and Mr. Patrick, as well as we also got files from concerned citizens about their road being needed repairs. So I am pleased to let you know that the roads that you have mentioned just now are all on the program to be repaired. Right? Now, I can't tell you that they'll be repaired next week, but they are in the program to be done between, let's say, June and within the next 2 to 3 years. But we will continue to patch. I know it's too long, but don't forget, we have a total of 78 roads so far listed to be done, both in St. Joseph, St. Andrew, St. Thomas, right? So It's an extensive program to be done, and we can't do all in one parish at the same time. But your roads will be repaired during the process.
Sorry.
MTW is going to roads that have big holes, putting in marl filling, but not bringing back the hot mix the next day. So by the time that people drive there with big cars and big trucks, or the rainfall, it will wash out again. It happens up Easy Holiday side. It happened in Liam Bridge. They are patching roads with marl fill. It's not hot mix. So when you put in hot marl fill, you ain't doing nothing. You can let it stand. I believe that these roads could be scraped, skin the roads, and let the people that who drive. I don't drive, but I got friends, I got children who drive. Let the people that who driving get a better ride on the road, and they won't have a duck from holes. They won't got to drop in potholes. What's so hard about that? Skin the roads.
If I can answer that question, the program is going to be done in 3 phases. 1 is mill and pave, where, as the gentleman correctly said, we're going to skin the road, we take off the surface and replace it. 2, we're going to reconstruct the roads which were built so badly or have deteriorated to the extent that they need to be fully reconstructed. And 3, reconstruction with bridges. There are some bridges that are in terrible condition in the Scotland district, and we plan to replace those at the same time we are rebuilding the road infrastructure. So it's not just going to be put in marl. We're going past that stage now. We're rebuilding, reconstructing, rehabilitating all the roads that I mentioned to you.
I'm past that stage yet because the truck at Highgate not working that brings out the hot mix. This is 3 weeks now the truck at Highgate not working. You know that? Mr. Patrick. The truck at Highgate's not working. Why is it that other people can get hot mix, but St. Joseph can't get? It's ridiculous.
We have some...
I ain't stopping though. We have the worst roads in Barbados right now. And we want them fixed.
I cannot...
So I would like to add, as also a member of the DEO, St. Joseph has a lot of bridges, And if you and your officers would drive around, Ms. Knight spoke about the bridge at Erie Hill. We have 2 bridges, one in Coffee Gully, one in Barchbury. We have the Melvin Hill Bridge. All of these bridges are major networks, and all of them are compromised. Now, we have a hurricane season coming up, Madam Prime Minister, and if these bridges are left till 3 years, how are the people in St. Joseph will be able to traverse this country? All of these bridges are major networks.
If I can answer that question or that statement. In 1985, a survey of all the bridges and culverts was done in Barbados. And since then, there has been no major works being done on bridges. And as a result, those bridges, primarily bridges that were built in the 1920s and 30s, obviously can't take the loading or the heavy traffic that is being...
I would like you to address the issue, but I think that you would agree with me that Mr. Tudor needs to be able to do so where the rest of who want to hear him can hear him. Because he's given us some critical information, because you need to understand that these bridges and these roads didn't get so yesterday. And that's why I call this government now electrolax. Because if you have not done anything since 1985, fundamentally with bridges, that is, count the years, 95, 2000 is 15, and 22 and 15 is how much? 37 years. He at least deserves to be heard in quiet, to tell us how they're going to address a 37-year-old problem in terms of the study, but you heard him say that many of them were built almost as long as 100 years ago. Let's give him the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. As I said before, most of these bridges were built around the 20s and 30s from the analysis that we have done. A report was done in 1985, which more or less highlighted the problematic bridges, and unfortunately, no substantial work has been done on these bridges since that report was done. We have gone out within the last 3-4 weeks and done an extensive survey of these bridges using the old 1985 report to determine what is the condition now of those bridges since 1985. And we've recognized that a substantial amount of these bridges need some serious repairs, right? We have identified about 10 or 15 bridges throughout the Scotland district, i.e. St. Joseph, St. Andrew, that need to be totally demolished, basically. You just saw the one in Bordens recently, showed signs of failure. That is also being looked at for repairs. But as the Prime Minister says, these things take time. You can't build all the bridges at one time. A bridge tentatively costs between $4 and $5 million each, right? And we have not been getting the money to date to repair these bridges as we would like. With this $230 million program, we will have the opportunity to do that now. So an extensive rehabilitation program throughout the whole Scotland district will be done, where the bridges will be repaired or replaced, and the roads likewise. So just hold tight, and this thing will come to fruition.
Just to add to that, Mr. Tudor, as well, you see, Bordens Bridge for me made me very aware as Minister of the issues that y'all were having in this constituency and in the Scotland district. And Mr. Tudor will tell you that that is why the mayor went back in the field to look at not just the bridges in St. Andrew, but they also had to do it across the entire country. And the reason for that is when he told me what the cost was, I said, well, let me do the math, because we got rail bridges in this country. And therefore, if one bridge costs $5 million, I cannot go to my beloved Prime Minister and tell her I want $5 million to fix all the bridges. So we also started to look at what became, what you call them, the temporary bridges that everybody know became permanent, because they were there so long and they held up, that we started to investigate, could we bring in additional bridges which don't cost as much as the $5 million, but which across the world that new technology is being used as well. So just to say to you that we are exploring the options, we're well aware, and I'm thankful to Parlosec, Dr. Rommel Springer as well, because he has been advocating for the people of St. Andrew, but in turn advocating for you as well in this constituency, because he has made us more aware of the challenges that people are having in terms of transportation. Because when those areas you are cut off from certain areas because the bridges have not been done for several years, it means that you're then taxing your pocket to put in gas to get to do a longer route to get to whatever destination you're going to. So we are aware, and that's why I asked Mr. Tudor to prioritize the worst bridges, but also to look at the ones where it would give us the opportunity to go back to Prime Minister to say, these are the ones that will give the people of these communities the ability to have access quickly. Okay, so we can't fix everything, but we are simply saying to you, we can prioritize. And then we can pull the money and we can go and beg Prime Minister for a little ease, and we can drop in another bridge. Luckily with Bordens, for instance, we had a temporary bridge that is being utilized and erected, but there are other bridges that the technical team are coming in shortly, and they will advise on some of the things that have been identified in the report as well. All right, so it's a work in progress. The second point I think that was made by the gentleman was in relation to water. And again, I will perhaps ask Mr. Leslie perhaps to speak to the issue of the water shortages, especially what you've been experiencing over the last couple of days.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Prime Minister, ministers. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here in St. Joseph and to speak to you. As the Prime Minister indicated, this parish of St. Joseph has been neglected for a number of years in terms of the upgrades to the infrastructure. If you, and as the Prime Minister indicated again, if you look at the infrastructure, some of it dates back to the early 1900s, 1920, 30. We've just built out on that infrastructure, but we have not replaced it. What we've been doing is we've been getting the investment now, and it started with the vineyard project, where we could bring more water into the system. We're also doing upgrades at Casa Grande to install a new reservoir there. But our network, the network that carries the water from the sources into the distribution system, that's still, a lot of that is still aged. It's still close to 100 years old. If you were listening to some of the reports that you see on the news, a lot of the sizes that they talk about are 3s and 5s and 7. Those sizes are not sizes that are manufactured now. Those are manufactured years ago. So our network in this area is aged, and it is creating a problem. Now that you have more water into the system, the network now is giving away. And what we're finding is that in those areas where it's hilly, like in Malvins and Spy Hill, once it is hilly, the pressure is going to be a little bit higher, and you get breaks, frequent breaks in those areas. For instance, and then there's some other areas when you get those breaks, then we have an issue of trying to find those leaks because the water disappears under the ground and you can't find it. A couple of weeks ago, we did a repair here at Casa Grande. We did a repair at Casa Grande, and when we did that repair, we found that the main was leaking from in the bottom. It had a hole about as big as a $2, and the water was just leaking away, but there was no sign of it coming to the surface. The Barbados Water Authority has been fortunate to be able to source some funding for mains replacement in this constituency. There are 16 kilometers of main that have been identified for replacement. That is going to be replaced through a program that is funded by a Latin American Development Bank called CAF. We are working with that bank now, trying to get that funding so that we could do the mains replacement. But in the interim, what we're doing is we've intensified our leakage detection, and we are intensifying our response to repairing those leaks. For those of you who would have come from the White Hill side and come around through Welchmore Hall, coming that way, you would have seen a lot of marks on the ground. You see a lot of orange paint all over the roads. That orange paint is used by our leakage detection teams when they are identifying the locations that they've gone through already. And as they go through those locations, they're identifying leaks that are visible and leaks that are not visible. They're reporting them to our department, and we're repairing them. So we're doing a twofold process. We're doing leakage detection, repair, and we're also going to be doing a mains replacement program where we're going to be replacing a number of those defective mains along with the Ministry of Public Works when they come through to do the roads in the parish. I don't know if Mr. Halliday wants to add anything else.
Sorry, let me just be a devil's advocate on behalf of my constituents. For much of the last 5 days, a lot of St. Joseph has been without water. Now, certainly, I was pleased with the tremendous improvement when the Vineyard to Golden Ridge project was completed, because most of St. Joseph was getting water on a daily basis, so much so that Water Authority was not even filling the water tanks. But to have had such a widespread outage of water in the last 5 days, throughout the weekend into today, tankers, I'm being told that tankers have not been visible, and therefore there's a tremendous. If we go a little later, I'm sure you'll begin to hear anger in the voices of some of the people in here. This is not what was expected after we said that we'd solved the water problem. So you've talked about leaking, but I'm assuming that some of those leaks have been there for years, so I'd like if you could answer the question whether the shortage of water or the absence of water in the last 5 days specifically was due to the leaks, or if it was due to, I was made to understand that there was a shortage of water in the Golden Ridge Reservoir. So I'm just hoping that you can give a little bit more clarity to the questions.
Okay. What you've indicated is that there is correct. In the Golden Ridge Reservoir, we had some issues there as well, but it is all related to leakage in our distribution system. Water from all of our sources, Bowmanston, Applewaite, the new vineyard project goes into the Golden Ridge Reservoir. That Golden Ridge Reservoir, some of that water is pumped onto Castle Grant and some of it is retained in the Golden Ridge system. Over the last month or month and a half, we've been picking up a number of leaks in the Castle Grant system. In the Castle Grant system, we've had issues like in the Auburn area. The main there in that Auburn area has burst about 6 times in that Auburn area. In the Golden Ridge side of it, we had a number of leaks in the Greens area. Once we have leaks in the lower areas, what happens is that the water does not stay in the particular reservoir, either Castle Grant or Golden Ridge. So then we have issues with having that water available to pump on. What we've been doing is increasing the water from additional sources into like the Apesville side and the Applewaite side. But even though you're doing that, once you have the leaks in the system, it depletes. When we did our investigations, the area that is has the persistent issues will be like the Melvins area, the Bissett's housing area, those areas on that side of the parish. But the vast majority of it is the leaks in the distribution system. And we are addressing those. We had crews intensifying their leakage detection in the Greens area, as well as the Castle Grant area. And then once they've identified those locations, we are addressing them.
Let us be very clear, and you need to be fuller and more frank with the public. Mr. Halliday, you told me last night that you all had problems with equipment that you have not cleared out for the last 5-6 weeks. Is that true?
That is true, Prime Minister.
Therefore, we need to tell the public that. How many have been cleared today after I asked you to clear them?
All right. Thank you for the opportunity, Prime Minister.
I'm finished yet. How many have been cleared today?
23.
Right. Secondly, you also told me you had problems with a number of people being sick with COVID and the non-revenue water team. Is that true?
That is also true.
Therefore, if they are sick with COVID, it means that they can't be out fixing the pipes that have burst, correct?
Addressing the leaks.
You need to tell the public that directly. They understand everybody getting COVID all across the country. Okay? And thirdly, you also told me that you have a difficulty with respect genuinely with over 1,200 leaks in 1 month?
Yes, Prime Minister.
You understand what 1,200 leaks in 1 month is? Now, I will break it down before Mr. Halliday talk. The British government gave us a water distribution system 120 years ago, 130 years ago. They had an empire that financed the construction of water distribution in all of these countries. We have a country, one country. Mr. Halliday, we also have the effects of the climate crisis that's affecting how much water you can pull from the aquifers. Is that true or not?
That is also true.
So that all of this fancy talk about climate crisis that you hear me talking about, it comes down to the fact that the water that we used to be able to pull from below is no longer there in the same way as it was before. Secondly, how much percentage of the water mains that breaking all the time? You all saw when I went in the bell the other day and I picked up the piece of rusty old iron, and you saw that we had a big pump, a big heavy pump that both from me to Charles Griffith there, and back down to there, sitting on a platform. Not true, Mr. Leslie? They've been waiting for how long for the stainless steel platform to put in there?
Over here.
18 months to be precise. You order it from China and it ain't get here yet. What was the decision made? That we can't wait no more, because if that pump fall in and fall down, it mash up. And instead of water being out in the belt for 3-4 days to replace the cast iron undergirds, you would now have to wait 6 to 8 months minimum. And I go further. Yesterday, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister Simmons, and others met with me and the Barbados Light and Power. And this is why these sessions now are so important, because we need to talk with people. When you playing cricket, Mr. Dixon, you say you come in from the playing field. When you playing cricket, you could play the same shots for spin that you play for pace. You can't. So the world is at war. The world is at war with COVID. The world is at war with climate. We had last year ashfall, freak storm, and Elsa. All in 1 year that you didn't have in 65. Okay? The world is at war with war. So what is happening? Everybody watch what's going on in China? China says zero COVID. So what happened? They shut down Shanghai. Shanghai got millions of people. Tens of millions. Not a man can move. Not a ship can move. So that is why the Water Authority, before even the shutdown, the pandemic had the supply chain mess up. So you can't get things. We met with Light and Power yesterday. Light and Power is having difficulty being able to secure certain things in its supply chain. It's not critical yet, but it can become critical if somebody go and knock down transformers and we ain't got no transformers to replace. That is what is happening in today's world. And I want to talk the country through it just as we talk the country through COVID. Because if we don't understand where we are, then we're going to start to have unrealistic expectations. Now, with respect to water, even with that, the Deputy Prime Minister is already talking to them, because if before you used to be able to keep 6 nails and 2 hammers and 3 jacks in storage, you now got to double up or treble up, because you don't know when next you're going to be able to get the supplies that you need. And that's from pipe to fittings. Mr. Boyce there, he will have to tell me all the fancy things that they need to do, all the things that Mr. Leslie want them to do. That's our reality. So the government, for the first time, we spent $30 million and $35 million on the Water Authority, because we understand that unless we subsidize it from central government, we cannot get ahead of the problem. But by the same token, what we're doing is trying to play catch up. Because before you went and spent all that money, $60-something million in a building, you should have spent the money in water pipes and distribution. And we're catching up. We're catching up. You go into the bell yard, and the first thing I was confronted with, a whole bunch of meter boxes just strewn down there like if it's a garbage dump. Not true?
Right,
All of those things. And all I'm saying to us now, look, we're going to make it through this crisis, believe you me. But when you got pressure and the wicket sticky and the ball spinning, you got to play a different shot than when the ball just coming straight. You understand? And that is what I want Barbadians to understand. And my saying it once is not going to make everybody understand. So you're going to hear me repeat it and repeat it. You're going to hear Dale repeat it. You're going to hear Santia repeat it. You're going to hear Dwight and Charles and Davis, all of us. Because the one thing we know, when last the world was at war, the older people in this crowd would tell you about big grain rice. How much young people know about big grain rice? You know what big grain rice is? You know what big grain rice is? Well, sweet potato. Because you couldn't import no rice. You couldn't get no rice. So that is why the Minister of Agriculture there in the back, and that is why the AG told you, give me a chance, please. That's why the AG told you that I have insisted that some of the land at Ginger Works be reserved for food cultivation. Because drunk or sober, drink water, get food, and mind your business. You understand? Because if that ship, God forbid, our traditional supplies are predominantly through Miami for shipping. If Miami gets hit with 1 or 2 hurricanes, which has happened before, and the hurricanes come in worser and faster than before, and that ship does not come in with the supplies for the food, we still have to be able to feed ourselves. And that is why we're talking. Tomorrow I leave with the Minister of Agriculture to go to Guyana, because we have, for the first time in post-independence history, a major agricultural investment conference for the Caribbean, bringing together investors and producers so we can reduce our import bill in this region. And if we need to get something, we can go short instead of having to go far to be able to buy the food. We're going to have to increase production locally. That's why we put in the water ponds at Browns, at Bordens, at Haggett's, and we're now about to put in St. Lucie as well, and elsewhere. And we're putting in, you see a huge one at Lears with 21 million gallons about to go in there. We want to make sure that we can put in the water. We want to make sure the water doesn't evaporate. We want to make sure that we put the floating PV panels on top in order to be able to earn, because those holes with water cost us millions of dollars. So, my friends, when the Deputy Prime Minister Santia and the Bounty Authority team speak to you about our need for conservation, listen. Listen. A word to the wise is sufficient. We are not living in times where it is normal, and the things that we took for granted 5 and 10 years ago, we cannot take for granted in today's world. We do not produce everything that we need. And those of you who went through World War II, don't think anybody in here went through World War I. But those of you who went through World War II will begin to tell you that when the world is at war, it's different from when the world is in a normal position where you can assume and deal with wants instead of needs. This is an environment where we know, I know we're going to get through, but we need to walk carefully, gingerly, mind our business, and stay focused. If we do that collectively, and I hear all the talking here, everybody want, and I get it, and I want to give you. But for me to give you, this economy has to grow. Which means that if you're supposed to go to work at 8 o'clock, do not come at 10 past 8. No, I'm serious. And if you're supposed to give X amount, then give X plus Y. Pretend, when you're exercising and you're pushing yourself, and yesterday you do 30 minutes, and you do 1.5 miles in 30 minutes, and tomorrow you need to do that 1.5 miles in another 25 minutes, by next week or whatever, you have to push yourselves, not because of you alone, but because when you finish earning, that's only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is what you are doing in the job. Because if the job is not making a profit, or if the job is not being efficient, or if the job is not serving people, then it means that we're falling down. And then it means that we don't have the money to do the things that we want to do. And I don't need to tell you that, because this country went through horrors between 2008 and 2018. To pick up a country that had less than 4 weeks import cover. In other words, if something happened to us, you only had money to buy what you need for 4 weeks, and the first thing that happened to you is that 2 weeks after that you had to pay out 100 million, so you're left with 3 weeks. And we built that from 3 weeks import cover to what it is today at 37 weeks. Okay? Now, some may say that some of it is borrowed, but tell me who, as a mother, went to the shop and trust goods to feed the family? Huh? Tell me who didn't do that. But the conversation I want us to have, parish by parish, and in every environment, is that each one of us must do more to push harder to keep this country safe. And I'm saying that from my heart. I'm saying it to young people. I'm saying it to old people. I'm saying it to men. Thank you. I get you. You see, the battery's gone, and that's what's happened. I get you. I feel you. Because I know it is hard. And I know the cost of living has gone up. And I know that we've had to put caps on fuel. I see the leader of opposition in Jamaica move a motion to do the very same thing that the Barbados government did in the budget when I capped the VAT on what we would take on fuel. Now, you would say you would like more. But at the end of the day, we still got to run a hospital. We still got to run and do the roads. We still got to give you the water. We still have to do everything. So that if, and work it through with me, if you're spending $200 a week in groceries and the cost of living gone up by 17%, okay? Let's say 20% for ease. That is $40 extra a week, correct? So the question is, look and see what is it in there that you could replace by growing in the back of you and growing and trading with your neighbors. Can you grow some vegetables while one of them raising some chickens or raising a sheep? You understand? So that at the end of the day, you may not be able to offset the full amount of the price increase, but you can offset some. By the same token, we are going to try to protect you wherever we can. And we know that when summer come again, the children home, the children gonna want enough food, the children gonna be humbugging you. By that time, we're gonna look around and see what we can do. But there's only so much, even then, that we can do because the world is what? At war. It's fighting climate, it's fighting the pandemic, it's fighting war in Ukraine and elsewhere. So I beg you, okay?
Good night, everyone. Prime Minister, everyone. My name is Faith Holder. I am 18 years old. And I attend the University of the West Indies, KFL. And I stand here not only for me, but for 13 of my other colleagues who are in the Human Nutrition and Dietetics program, the Bachelor's of Science at KFL. And before I go into the matter, I just want to say that this program is a very good program, and the persons within it love it, I love it, and it's helping me to become the dietitian that I aspire to be from the time I was in third form. However, last year when this program came about, we applied and we asked questions, and in 2018 when the government said that they are sponsoring all undergraduate programs for all Barbadian students, we were delighted and thought it applied to us. However, last year, coming down to the end of semester one, we were told that was not the case. Having heard that, we contacted our MPs in January. We spoke to our MPs, we wrote letters, we sent letters, we went down to the Prime Minister's office, we went down to the Ministry of Education, and we have not heard anything. We got a response from the Prime Minister's office, I think from her secretary, stating that the matter was passed on to the permanent secretary within the Ministry of Education. I have the timelines right here. On March 14th, that was said to us on the 21st of February. On March 14th, I called and I was just told to email and still waiting all night now. Now, is $9,000 a semester. I do not have that money. My 13 other colleagues do not have that money. We would like to be afforded the same opportunity like all other persons within the undergraduate that are doing undergraduate programs to be sponsored by government. This program will allow us to become dietitians. How many of you guys know what a dietitian is? No one. A dietitian is a professional who are experts in food and nutrition and helps persons to maintain, treat, or prevent diseases. That's what through food, that's what a dietitian is. And me personally, I wanted to be a dietitian from the time I was in third form, as I said. And we know that Barbados is currently experiencing an NCD epidemic. We have the obesity in children. Today is World Hypertension Day, And on the radio, I heard the doctor, I can't remember her name, but she said over the age of 25, 40% of Barbadians have been diagnosed with hypertension. That's almost half of the adult population. And it is very concerning to us. And to see that another one of my colleagues, she came from doing the same program in Trinidad, but she came home to do it. And to find out this is very disheartening. And many of us, I sat down and I cried because I said, I can't believe this. And I know the Prime Minister said that at least one person within a household should be able to go to university. I am that one person within my household. My mother never made it to university. I am a first-generation university student. And to see that I may have to neglect my dreams to not.
You don't. But let me also explain, and we will investigate it. We pay 110 plus 20, $138 million a year to the University of the West Indies. There have been occasions where the university has introduced what they call self-financing courses that simply have just not been approved as part of the package with government. I would have to assume that this is what happened with yours.
And we weren't told.
And I believe you, and I'm also telling you that the university has a responsibility to tell people when they have a course that is a self-financing course, as Santi is reminding me. Having said that, you don't have to make that case, because the truth is that this government has placed chronic NCDs at the top of its list in fighting the health battle. And therefore, once it is there, the fact that it was referred to the Ministry of Education, regrettably, the Minister of Education is not here tonight, but we will follow up with her and the university to see why it is that this has been one of the courses where you have been asked to pay fees when they know that the fees alone, the economic cost at the university that we pay is 110 million, and the fees that we pay is on or about 28 million. Bottom line, that if there, how many you say in the class?
There's 14.
14 times 9, 140 minus 9,000, that's 131,000. There's no way that the government of Barbados is going to let you and others suffer in this country for $131,000 a term. So sleep well, my dear.
Thank you very much.
And you now begin to see why these sessions are important, because active citizenry means that people bring to issue problems. There's not everything we're going to be able to solve, but those that we can resolve, we will do so and get on with the business. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Madam Prime Minister, Minister Marshall, Minister Bradshaw. My name is Heather Marshall. I am the wife of the late Calvin Marshall. I'm not sure if this is the correct forum for me to voice my opinion, but I am really distressed about the situation that I am faced with on my home. My house was, my husband's house and my house was constructed in the mid-80s. We lived at the bottom floor of a family house, the bottom apartment of a family house. What happened during the mid-80s is when the heavy rainfall the runoff water would run into our apartment. My husband would have written a letter to NTW, and he would have had a gutter and a receiving wall constructed at the side of the house, which would take the water from the house onto the gully to the back. Currently, that wall has collapsed. It has collapsed since October of last year. I have written several letters. I wrote letters to MTW. I wrote letters to the drainage unit. I contacted them by phone. I contacted my MP by phone. So far, I have not received any correspondence about this issue. What is happening now is that I have noticed that there are holes in the yard and water is draining in those holes. I've also realized that the house is shifted because I have a small bathroom to the third floor of the house, and there are numerous cracks in the wall, and the tiles are falling off. What's also happening is that I have a small salon to the back of the left-hand side of the house. I'm unable to use that door because it's not opening, because the house has shifted also. The wall that has collapsed is resting on a light beam that my husband has constructed, and that light beam is cracked. And it's very dangerous for clients to be, or me, or my family to be walking in the hallway to get to the house. What I'm also concerned about is that now I have to allow the clients to walk through the kitchen in order to get to the salon because I'm unable to use the door to the salon. My question this evening is, before I get to that, I usually do my power walk through the districts of St. Joseph and St. Andrew. I realized going to Coconut Grove that there's also another lady who has a receiving wall to the front of her house, and that has collapsed also. Going to Fruitful Hill, which leads to Cane Garden, I realized that there's a wall being constructed, a receiving wall being constructed to bear up the dirt from falling on the road. My question this evening is, why are domestic houses being overlooked in order that roads that were out of commission for over 60 years, because I remember walking to Cane Garden to visit my grandmother when I was 5 or 6 years old through that road, and now they are given priority over domestic houses. My question is to my representative this evening. I remember I sent you a WhatsApp message and you never responded. I want to know why you haven't responded, and also the a representative from MTW, Mr. Addison, he came at two weeks before my husband passed away. He promised my husband that he would come and start to construct the gutter. 2 weeks passed, 40 times already, and no one came. This is not only disadvantaging me as a professional person with clients coming to my house, it is very unsightly, and I'm unable to clean the gutter as I would want it clean. When I called the maintenance man to clean around the house, he completely overlooked that. So my question this evening to you, Mr. Leon Marshall, why haven't you responded to my WhatsApp message? And my question to I don't know if there's anyone here to address it from the MTW. I don't know if there's a Mr. Addison here, because when he came, I was not at home, so I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if he's here that he could address this. I remember when I was a young married woman, my husband would leave me at home for hours and come, go to the politician to canvass, to make sure that this government remained in power, the government that he thought was the best government in power. I want to know why at this time that I am being disadvantaged after my husband would have spent so much time, making sure that this government remained in power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshall. Let me say that I'm looking at my phone, and the last message that I see related to the number of attendees at your husband's funeral. And your husband was very close to me. So I apologize if you sent me a message I didn't respond to, but we communicated certainly at that time. I don't think it would be fair to say that there's any concentration on dealing with drainage in relation to roads, over drainage in relation to houses. Certainly from my dealings with MTW, MTW has always understood that both things have to go hand in hand, both the preservation of people's personal investments have to communicate and to move around. I will give you the assurance, MTW is here. I'll have a discussion with Mr. Patrick as soon as this meeting is over, so that perhaps we could find a way to address what the situation is, all right?
Take off the mask for a second while you speak.
Just hold on, the technician come to the mic. Hold on.
Good evening. My name is Antoinette Clark. My concern this evening is, Mr. Halliday, you spoke about the water and all the vehicles that had broken down and where you could not deliver water in our constituency or probably through the island. But I find that we are at a very big disadvantage. Since last week, Thursday, the polyclinic newly opened. We have approximately six water tanks up there, and it so happened that all 6 were empty from last week, Thursday. And it is a difficulty because some persons had to go to Queen's Park. Some persons that thought that they might have COVID or whatever had to leave from St. Joseph to go to Queen's Park. I don't know. I think that it's really bad to see 6 water tanks empty all together. So I think we really need to do something. Ever so slight, we need to do something about that. I don't know.
Ma'am, I just want to tell you, I totally agree with you. If the 6 tanks are empty, then we need to have it addressed. There's no question about it. I don't think we're aware if that is the case, but I can assure you that we will address it, and I'll have Mr. Halliday certainly look into it. You weren't aware, right?
Thank you, DPM. Where's the young lady? Sorry. Okay. We have had some challenges, truth be told. When we were referring to trucks or vehicles that were broken down, these were not the tankers. So the tanker service is still intact and should be delivering. If you're referring to the community tanks that are next to the polyclinic, we're in the habit of filling those on schedule. If you're referring to the... Are you hearing me? I'm sorry? Right, so the tanks at the polyclinic, they will normally call us to let us know if they're running low, and we will respond. But being what you're saying, given what you're saying, we're gonna have to make sure that we check them on a routine basis regardless. Now, the last 4 or 5 days have been a little taxing, and we can only apologize, but from tomorrow you're gonna see a big difference, I can assure you. So, what you're telling me in terms of the tanker service, I can promise you we'll check on it, and we're going to make sure that we resolve that so that you will not see that happening again. But I do appreciate you raising this to our attention. Thank you.
Before you speak, Tricia, Antoinette, let me just say that the truth is the 6 tanks, go ahead, the 6 tanks that are at the clinic are really an emergency supply. The problem is that the clinic was built and the water main has not up to now been connected to the clinic. So I can tell you that last week the project unit was working on the site, doing trenching and so on, so that the main will actually be connected, because those tanks should really be filled by the water coming into the main, filling the tanks, and then going into the clinic. I've seen Water Authority trucks there. In fact, on the 26th, when the Prime Minister and I were there, Water Authority tanker was actually filling it. But obviously, it is unforgivable that we've just built a brand new clinic and that these things are falling through the cracks. But I can tell you that I've been speaking to both Water Authority and the project unit at the Ministry of Health to try to get that resolved in the shortest possible time, and it is being worked. And if you go there, you will actually see the trenching work that has started, all right? Just wanted to make that clear.
Before the next person speaks, could we just remember where we started, where everyone was more or less giving each person who speaks a chance to be heard, or at least we're getting a little restless. So let's try to tone it down for a little bit. Also, can I ask everyone to keep their questions or their commentary short? We did say we were going on until 8:30, and Prime Minister does have another appointment. So let's keep it rolling, but quickly so that we can get as many people as possible. Thanks. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Gill, and I wish to draw attention to what is not the Gold Coast of Barbados, but the East Coast of Barbados. We're cognizant of the fact that the problems that I'm going to talk about now would not have occurred overnight, and therefore the solution would not be an overnight solution as well. There is severe beach erosion occurring in Bathsheba, and I would like to know if it says that the CZMU, if it says that there is anything in the pipe work in terms of any type of mitigative measures that we could look to try to preserve what is left of the coastline, because we would appreciate that not only would the Josephines' lives be impacted, but also their livelihood. And as my vice chair for the DEO also highlighted, I'm also a member, and I wish to speak about the fact that we only have one category, one shelter, and that is the library at Tamarind Hall, and you would appreciate that. It is a small library because it's in the country, and that is only going to be able to house 35 persons. Along with housing those 35 persons, we have to be aware as well that there are shelves that would be in the area, and therefore, in terms of being comfortable, it would pose some challenges. We wanted to know if it is that it would be possible, if it is we can have one of these schools being redesignated as a Category 1 shelter. I know that there are conditions that the schools have to meet, or the infrastructure has to meet, to be designated as a Category 1 shelter. Again, we do not expect that these problems will be solved overnight or that it would be ready. Okay, thank you. Also, what would be an immediate fix for us is that we are also appealing for chainsaws, because you would appreciate that we have a lot of trees in the area, and as long as there is rain and winds, we are going to have these trees falling and impacting the movability of the DEO and also the first responders for any instances that may or may not occur in the parish.
Thank you very much, Tricia. I'm going to ask the minister responsible for the environment to deal with the issue of the erosion of the beaches. But let me just say, in relation to the DEO issues, and I think you captured the challenge. In order to be classified as a Category 1 shelter, the engineers at the Ministry of Public Works have to certify that the particular building is going to be able to withstand a particular magnitude of hurricane. So while we do have we have schools and so on and other facilities in the constituency of St. Joseph, but we're not able to retrofit them just for that purpose. We, in our discussions on the need for a Category 1 shelter, it was during 2019 that we actually made the decision to have the library investigated and to make sure that we at least have that. I agree that we have to have more. In relation to supplies for the DEO, I'm happy to engage you on that, and I'll speak to the minister who's responsible for Home Affairs, Minister Abrams. We are getting ready now for the hurricane season, and he's going to be bringing to Cabinet a paper this Thursday dealing with hurricane preparedness, and the ability of the DEOs to respond is going to be central. So I hope to be able to come back to you on those issues. Adrian?
Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, AG, and the young lady, I like yourself, I'm an unrepentant Josephine. My neighbor's stream was very shortly in part St. Joseph. So I feel your pain, and I'm sensitive to the issues as it relates to the beach and the erosions that you're speaking of. I just want to say Barbados has not been spared the idiosyncrasies of climate change. And because of that, there are certain natural phenomena that we have to deal with. Unfortunately, over the last couple of weeks, we've had abnormal swells. And these swells that we are experiencing, they have taken adverse effect on the coastline. And I'm going to ask the Coastal Zone Management, headed by Dr. Leo Brewster, to have a conversation with you and other residents so we can talk about the mitigation plans or any remedial action that we need to take, whether it's breakwaters that we are going to have put down as a measure or the revetments. But that is something that we will have that conversation with the people of St. Joseph and the experts. You just need to have a time set with your MP, and we can have that conversation as it relates to those plans to mitigate the idiosyncrasies as I described. So that is something that you can look forward to having that conversation with the Coastal Zone Management Unit. But rest assured, we'll do everything in our power as it permits in terms of human activities and our ability to deal with it to ensure that St. Joseph is preserved. And that is my firm commitment to you. All right.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kellyanne Knight. Just two questions. My colleague, Mr. Dixon, would have raised the issue of sporting opportunities and education as it relates to youth. My question is simply related to employment opportunities for young Josephines. Throughout the community, one of the main cries from the youth is employment. What efforts are being made to provide employment opportunities for young persons in St. Joseph?
Do you want to give your second question at the same time?
Sure. My second question is related to agriculture. It was quite reassuring hearing the Prime Minister speak about the acquisition of lands at Ginger Works. St. Joseph does have some of the most fertile lands, and therefore I think that we should try to acquire a lot more of them. I know about the feed program and the fact that they have lands in St. Lucie as well as St. Andrew. But I think that we have opportunities for some land in St. Joseph where Josephines can farm and by extension ensure their food security. The other question to add to that would be related to one that is commonly discussed on the down to brass tacks, and I know my colleague, again, Mr. Dixon, almost every week I hear him talking about it, how do we handle the monkeys? They are a huge menace to the yields, and something needs to be strategically done to address them. So what is the Ministry of Agriculture doing to address the threat of the monkeys?
Good evening, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, AG, colleagues. The ministry is indeed working to ensure that there's several programs for young people in relation to employment. We have one of the senior youth commissioners that is dealing with a program called Get Into that is providing a whole range of training initiatives for the job market. All you have to do is to call the ministry to deal with that. This morning I heard on the radio that we need to pay attention to men on the blocks. I got a call about 6:45 telling me the ministry is under pressure, and I asked, like, how could this government be under pressure? Just recently, the block committee has been reintroduced, and so far, they have been on blocks in St. Lucie and St. Peter, registering persons for the Gateway program, registering individuals from off of the blocks for that particular program that is housed in the ministry called the Next Step Generation. The youth commissioner from St. Joseph is part of the block committee, and that is headed up by Marcus Stevens. So there are several programs in the ministry that is catering to youth employment, and you will hear from time to time that we roll out all of those programs. I will be brief, but we have a national monitoring mentorship program that is coming just now. We have part of the news report this morning indicated that there's a need to have persons working with those individuals at DOTS. I have one of my officers, David Denny, who is working with the ministry, is working with DOTS to ensure that those youngsters who are coming out of that particular institution is reintegrated into mainstream society. So it is a good time to be a young person in this country, because there's several programs at the ministry that my team is rolling out to benefit all of those young persons. So to answer your question in one sentence, yes, there are programs at the ministry that is catering to jobs for young people.
I suspect you may want to know about some other programs, and I thank Charles for indicating some of those that are immediately available. But we also will have a slew of construction projects coming, and all who can benefit from that. That's why he talked about Construction Gateway. We also expect that at some point in the next 6 months, you will see Sam Lloyd's Castle being completed. That is going to provide, well, it won't be called Sam Lloyd's Castle, but one of the properties at the old castle property is likely to be completed and having a phased opening from late in the year into the new year. And then, of course, we have the digitization project, where government has been digitizing records and also using people. And we're about to expand that significantly once we can get the warehouse that has to be completed so that we can start digitizing the Barbados archives. Barbados has the second largest transatlantic slave records in the entire world. And about 2 years ago, South Africa lost a lot of theirs, regrettably, to an accident. We don't want to lose ours, and therefore we're trying to settle the financing in place, which will see us needing people to help digitize those records within a 2 to 3 year period. So there are a number of opportunities. Then, of course, there's the self-employment, and then, of course, there's the trust loans program. Then, of course, there's fund access. So what we're beginning to see in this economy again is we're seeing the green shoots of recovery. We're seeing people need people. Unemployment in the country is back down to 10.9%, basically where it was before COVID, but we don't want it there. That is still too high for us. So work with us, but what I will say is that I encourage young people to get skills, because without skills, you taking and playing Russian roulette and gotta take what you get and get paid what you get. Whereas if you have skills, you can command and have salaries. The other thing that we've also put on the table, and the job fair, I've asked the Ministry of Tourism to start to promote the fact that we will have the job fair, we hope, with Royal Caribbean. I think they told me June 14th. That is for those of you who don't mind going off the island and working within the cruise industry. We have other jobs coming there. I've also had in recent, when it was not last Friday, Friday before last, engagement with a company out of Europe that's looking to offer creatives jobs and to be able to do remote work from this part of the world for probably a couple hundred creatives, but that's going to mean not just Barbados, but outside of Barbados. So, and then we have 2 offers before us to do cybersecurity training so that persons can get global jobs, because there's going to be a shortage of cybersecurity personnel across the world, but people can remain here and do remote work, and we're now looking to see how best we can fund that training in order to give people better opportunities for jobs. So my dear, we are early in the recovery stages, but I feel, as I told you, we're going to make it, but we also have to moderate our expectations and to recognize that all of us has to do the best that we can do to prepare ourselves for the opportunities that will come our way. Thank you. And now you want to speak quickly on the agriculture, and on the monkeys, I will ask him to speak to you privately. And I urge Prime Ministerial intervention on that, and he will tell you why. Yeah.
A very good night to everybody and to the good people of St. Joseph. It's a pleasure to be up here with you. I recognize that there are some challenges that people are facing in terms of crop production, with the scarcity of water, availability of land. I just walked outside and about 4 persons approached me from St. Joseph telling me that they want either access to land to do crops, build chicken coops, and some people also want access to funding. I want to say to all of you that we have a whole suite of support in the Ministry of Agriculture. One, we have the Agriculture Development Fund. It has three main planks. One is the social aspect, where we help people who might have been involved in farming, had some distress, and need to get back going. You present your documents and your proposal to the ministry, the Chief Agriculture Officer who's here. She will go through them, make the recommendations to the Enterprise Growth Fund, and we help to get you going. If you have a major project, a project that takes large amounts of financing, once you've submitted your proposal, it looks like a project that we feel will work. The Chief Agriculture Officer goes through, she brings the recommendations to me, I sign off, it goes to Enterprise Growth Fund, you can get funding. So there is access to funding through the Agriculture Development Fund. In terms of land, if you need land, Barbados Agriculture Development Marketing Corporation, BADMC, they are working currently with farmers in what is called the Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive, or the FEED program that you all may know it as. And what we are doing there is that we are setting up to quickly get people who already have experience in farming onto land, helping them with the tanks if there's no water, so that they can get access to water. So we're doing the 1,000-gallon tanks in addition to the tanks that the dams that the Prime Minister spoke about earlier. And we are doing the cultivation, helping you with the irrigation systems, even giving you the planting material to get you started. This is currently happening. We have a major project going on at Mount Poyer, which is not far from here, and we're replicating this right across Barbados. Those of you who do not have any training, don't know anything about agriculture, but want to get involved, you sign up onto the FEED program, you get 3 months of training, and all the support to get started. Cultivation, drip lines, PPE, and startup kit with seedlings or planting material. So those are the focal things that are happening in the ministry. The FEED program is our flagship program for production. We've had up to 1,200 people who would have expressed an interest in participating. Our target is 2,000. Were it not for COVID in 2020 and 2021, we probably would have surpassed that target by now. But just like everybody else, my staff had COVID, the extension officers, everybody else were impacted by COVID. We had to pause. When the country paused, we had to pause with the training. Everything is coming back to normal now, and we are forging ahead. So I urge all of you who have interest in getting involved in agriculture, we are putting in the systems, the water, the support. We're improving the extension services as well, so that the extension officers will come around, hear from you, and report back to us or give you advice. I fully recommend that you speak to BADMC or speak to your MP, and he will speak to me.
Thank you very much, Minister Ware. All right, we are at the 8:30 point. There are two persons ahead of the mic, so we'll take both of you one after the other, and then we will take the three of you, but all three questions at the same time, and then we'll let the appropriate persons respond. So try to keep it as short as possible.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, AG, Josephine. Good night. I had a few questions, but I'm down to one. Before I ask that question, though, I must say that for years, I referred to St. Joseph as the stepchild of Barbados. And I was an unhappy Josephine. Now, I am content. And I am sure that I will be happy in the next, 3 years? I'm hoping. But I am content. All right, so let me say that. And I also want to congratulate the Prime Minister for championing the climate change agenda. It is something that somebody from a small island state, because we are going to be hit first, and I don't think that the large metropolitan states understand that, so it's going to take one of us to really champion that cause. I'm also pleased about the agriculture conference in Guyana as somebody who is actively involved in farming. But my real question has to do with education, and it is not a St. Joseph issue. I think it is a Barbadian issue. I'm sorry that the current Minister of Education is not here. I'm hoping that the immediate past minister will be able to shed some light on the issue. I want to ask, what is I know that we have some education reform happening, and we have 3,000 teachers in Barbados just about, but we only have X amount of spaces for upward mobility in education, X amount of principals, deputies, etc. And what happens is that you work in a system, you get these qualifications, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, there's nowhere to go, and you get a little bitter, and you get a little like crabs in a barrel, like, and this body ahead of me and that thing. So I'm wondering, is there any plan to put, more higher positions in education? You would understand that the education system is changing. We have new challenges, we have new subjects coming on. When I was at school, we didn't have animation and game design, we didn't have green engineering, we didn't have design, logistics, and environmental science and PE as an actual physical written subject and not games. So how can we have the same amount of education officers that we had, 20, 30 years ago? One, are we going to get more education officers? Two, what about the master teachers that you said were going to come? And 2 master teachers is not enough. We would like at least 10, and when are they coming? 3, my last thing, 3. In Jamaica, a school has 2 deputy principals, or vice principals as they call them. One that deals with discipline, and one that deals with curriculum. I could be a deputy, but I don't want to deal with discipline. I don't want to deal with fights. I don't want to call your mother. I don't want to talk about put down your hem, take out that hair, your socks, your pants, your skirt. I don't want to do that. I want to deal with curriculum. I want to develop how students learn and getting better exam results and building a positive learning environment and the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. I want to do with that. But there's no scope for persons like me because a deputy gets bogged down with calling your mother, who fight, you come school late, all of that. So that's my question about education and not a St. Joseph matter. I hope that somebody can help me. Thank you.
Okay, we'll break from the rule and because of the in-depth nature of that question, and let the Deputy Prime Minister answer.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. Just to say to you, ma'am, I think once a Minister of Education, always a Minister of Education. But good questions. And you started by talking about education reform, and that is, that's been our buzzword, but it's also what we have started. Certainly, when I was Minister of Education, we started the process of rolling out the education reform. Again, reform is not something that is just about the common entrance examination. It was about reform in relation to our teachers, in relation to training, in relation to opportunities, not just here, but outside. It was in relation to master teachers. And just to say to you, before I left office, the paper was actually signed off on for the master teachers. I believe that COVID would obviously have prevented us from putting that into motion. But I suspect that Minister McConney will certainly pick that up, and hopefully that will be able to come to cabinet shortly. In terms of the reforms going forward, those are all of the things that we have to look at in terms of our curriculum, looking at specialist teachers, because in a lot of cases there are people, as you said, who do not want to do everything. They don't want to be general teachers. They want to specialize. And so part of the reform process in terms of putting a directive of education reform in place, creating a unit, was intended to pretty much move away from the old system, which for the most part has been very archaic. It has served us well. But the truth is that when we think of future jobs, for instance, we had to the outset, when Prime Minister created the ministry, as you know, we spoke about Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. At that time, we did not have even a dedicated education officer who was dealing with the technical and vocational subjects. Today, I can say we have that person, and that person is working not just with the secondary schools, but also working with the primary schools and working with the tertiary institutions. And that is the type of reform that has to come, where you are not seeing technical and vocational subjects, for instance, as though it is the stepchild, like how y'all say St. Joseph has been. It's no longer the stepchild of education, but rather it is integrated into the mainstream curriculum, so children who are interested in the skills areas have the opportunity to be able to participate and make decisions from early. Children who are interested in the creative arts don't have to wait to do this as a side thing, but that our system and or the way we speak about these subjects is about giving everybody the opportunity, regardless of their ability, regardless of their talent, an opportunity to be able to have a piece or a part to play within the educational landscape. So we've started the process, to answer your question in short. We've started the process. A number of those reforms are coming, and I have no doubt that Minister McConney will certainly continue what I have started as well, and what Prime Minister would have laid the foundation for both of us to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Teddy Allen. I live down in Cleavers Hill, down in Bathsheba. I come here tonight because I notice there's a sub-interest here in youth development and youth empowerment. So that's what brings me here as a representative to present a case that's been demanded by the youth in Bathsheba. Now, earlier we heard the Prime Minister tell us to look at the distinction between a want and a need. Out of respect for everything that everyone spoke about here, this is a total want. This is not a need, right? So I want to be clear about that. But it's a want on something I want to give you, not a want on something I want from you. So let me explain what we're trying to do. The youth in Bathsheba, we used to go to the skate park a lot in Wilde. It's been a huge success. It's transformed a couple kids in the neighborhood, but it's very difficult to get there. If I'm not driving the kids there, there's maybe one or two other people that could possibly drive there. So we wanted to build a professional quality half pipe in that area. And as a community, we've raised $22,000 to do this. $22,000 to build a professional quality concrete half pipe that would be one of a kind in Barbados. A concrete half pipe does not exist on this country. So we would allow it to exist in its first place, right? Now, this is a youth development project, totally funded, won't cost you one penny, won't cost anyone one penny. The money is in the account for the developer. And he says, just let me know. We can start building it next month, right? But I want to remind a couple things of what was said. Sporting is a real opportunity. This is a tangible opportunity that we have, right? Mr. Marshall said that. Mr. Marshall also said, we look for wholesome sporting activities. This represents a wholesome sporting activity, right? Now, we've asked to put this skate ramp at the corner and the edge of the park overlooking the community center. Why do we want it there? Because not only is it just going to be the most attractive place on the island for it, but it also helps to empower local businesses. You're going to attract people there. They're going to use a skateboard ramp before they go surfing, after they go surfing. They're going to have access to the restaurants nearby, the bars nearby, so the places at the community center to patronize nearby as well. So it's an ideal location. You could have it at St. Elizabeth School, but you take away the hardcore space that does exist from that if you do that. Now, there's another thing I want to bring up that I heard earlier, and the Prime Minister said, we looked ultimately what the people of the parish want. So I came prepared with over 150 signatures, went door to door mostly, met my neighbors, talked to them, said, hey, look, here's what we want to do, here's where we want to put it. Everyone was in unanimous agreement. we'd love to have you there. They said, yeah, if you get the kids there, we know where they are. We're giving them something to do. It's safe. It's healthy. Let's do it, right? So what am I asking for? I'm asking for one word. I'm asking you to say yes for us to put the half pipe in that location at zero cost with over 150 people in
Let us
demand.
give you a yes to we do a site visit. We're coming up there on the 2nd of June to open the facility. I'm going to come, it's supposed to start at 5. I'm going to come at 4:30 to do a site visit so we can decide if it's appropriate. Because the one thing I've learned in life is that if we're going to make something happen, and I'm going to say it's going to happen, then it needs to happen. So I need to walk with the officials from Town Planning and MTW, and once they have no objection, then it will be a go. If that is not a proper location, then we will work around and look around and find the proper location so you can put the money and the children can have the skate park.
Thank you very much. And also, one of my neighbors back there just wanted to mention that there's a large crack in the road tennis court that was just built, and he just wanted people to be aware that they love it. It's very popular. People are using it, but there's a little crack that's developed.
And we'll have the final question statement from the audience for tonight.
Hi, good evening. Prime Minister, Mr. Marshall, Mr. Santiago Bradshaw, distinguished guests. My name is Brian Tate. I have just a couple of questions, and the Prime Minister and some of the members, they have already answered some of the questions as it relates to agriculture. Kelly spoke about the monkeys, but there's also another problem that is facing St. Joseph, which is the cowage as well. And for the most part, the plantations are responsible for the coverage, and they don't seem to care about us as far as I'm concerned. They have coverage in the cane and they have coverage in the all in the RAB lands. I heard you say ginger works. Mr. Marshall, ginger works is not enough. You know how much land up by me that in so much bush. We got to do something about this because Barbadians needs to be fed. And we have the land. Pardon me? Pardon me? Blackman's Tenantry, St. Joseph, sorry. Blackman's Tenantry, St. Joseph. There's too much bush. Definitely too much bush around here, and the plantations are responsible for most of the bush. And it needs to be, I mean, like, they're putting it in cane, and if they're going to leave it in bush, they might as well pass it over to these young farmers or the small farmers within the community and let me put something on it. Because at the end of the day, we got to feed ourselves. And that's the way I think about it. Transportation. We got, I respect the fact that the transportation has been working quite well, but we're facing a little problem on the St. Joseph route. When the small vans come to us on mornings, by the time they leave Blackman's, it can't get town because it's done full. You know what I mean? So it can't pick up nobody else. So the small vans on morning and rush hours, that's a no-no. We need a big bus that we can pick up more people and get them on the way down the road safely. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thank you for the things. Santia has heard you with respect to the issue of the bus and with respect to the issue of the land. Indar will tell you that they're doing an audit for me of all land that is not in production. Because what we cannot necessarily, what we don't use in food and why we don't have a lot of water. You ever hear something called Aloes barbadiensis? They call that by accident. And then how many of you know the castor oil tree? Castor oil is now over a $1 billion industry globally. So that there are options that we can pursue, and the target that we are setting ourselves is to get as much land, sir, back into production as possible. And I've said to Indar, look, 30 years ago, the Barbados Agricultural Credit Trust was formed and the Barbados Agricultural Management Company, all to be able to deal with the indebted plantations that had owed the Barbados National Bank a whole set of money. To his credit, David Thompson took them together and put them and reformulated and put them in a way where the government took them over and was running some of them. And in some instances, some lands have gone back to people. In some instances, we still have possession of them. There's roughly about 1,900 acres under the BAMC that's not in production, largely because of water-related or other issues. We're going through it now, section by section by section, to see what may be appropriate either there to grow and where we can put in the additional water, because as I said, we have put money. How much money have we given you for the water ponds that we've done so far? Between Browns, Bordens, and Haggett? Almost 20 million in 3 ponds, so it's not a little bit of money. But as he said, we're using a combination of the ponds and the water tanks because we want as many people to get back into farming and production as possible. And where, as I said, we don't have the capacity to do food, we will do other crops that can earn to offset your expenditure with other things. So I'm happy. In my constituency on Saturday, at least 3 young men came to me once again. There is a renewed interest in agriculture in this country, and we genuinely believe, as we've said, if we move away strictly from a plantation model, if we start to infuse technology and capital into it, and we ensure that there should be nothing called a glut. And that's why Indar and I are going tomorrow to discuss also the construction of the Guyana-Barbados Food Terminal at Lears that will be able, hopefully, to accommodate, when we're finished, 45 container trucks. It will have the cold storage, it will have the pack house, it will have the storage, it will have the waxing machines, so that we can, if we can't use all that we're producing at the moment, we can store it. How many of you know that when you go in the supermarket, the onions you buy is 12-month-old onions? But yet you can go to St. Lucie and show you by Mr. Waldron some of the most delightful red onions and normal onions that you will ever see. And we need to get back to a position where we are producing what we need, and what we can't use immediately, we're in a position to do some form of agro-processing and storage, blast freezing or whatever, so that we can sustain ourselves throughout the year. And I think that what is great is that the mindset combined with the cost of living is creating now the necessity for us to do what we should have been doing all a long time since. So thank you, my brother. On the buses, as I said, Santi has heard you, and we will try to respond accordingly. Okay? Roy, I'm going to use the opportunity to wrap up now. But I want to say, Percy, thank you, my love, and thank you for your daily messages.
Sorry, the same transportation issue and the modernization of the public service in terms of working from home and flexible working arrangements. We in St. Joseph have had issue with transportation for years. I myself catch the 5 o'clock bus, I get work at 6:15. In some situations, who feels it knows it. Some of us have issues getting approval to work from home. Some of us having issues with getting flexible working arrangements. And I myself know, because I have been through it, so it's very passionate for me. So I think that people can take into consideration the fact where you come from, the bus situation, in terms of having to approve these things.
I hear you. And let me say that the government is making some changes as of May 24th, 25th next week. And look, it's one thing to manage, and we're going to manage. But if we become so consumed with management, we can forget to reform. We cannot have a 20th century analog government in a 21st digital century. Okay? And therefore, I've taken some decisions. I've spoken to the head of the public service. As of next week, there are going to be 2 PSs dealing with 2 different things that are intended to streamline and bring about efficiency. And then there's another section that's literally dealing with coming out. I've promised the country we are going to look at all of those human resource issues in the public service that have remained unresolved. And therefore, we're going to have a dedicated framework both for regrading, for the issue of regrading, which is still with the best will in the world, likely to take about 18 months to 2 years, because you're going through thousands of posts. But secondly, we need to establish the Public Service Appeal Board. We need to ensure that the flexi time, which we used good during COVID, but we need now to use it in a non-shutdown environment so that everybody understands how it can work. And then we need lieu days. This notion that if you want a day off, you gotta go and tell somebody you're sick or take a vacation day is foolishness. In other organizations, you can take up to 5 lieu days. In other words, I could take 5 days. It's my birthday, I want a day off. I'll take it back and give it back to you another day. So that you can make those flexible arrangements instead of making big adults feel as though their children are criminals. Okay? So there are some major changes coming. We're also trying to remove this siloed approach to things, because just because the ministry is public works or the ministry is housing or the ministry is innovation, science and technology doesn't mean they're empires. All of us belong to what? One country, Barbados. And therefore, to deliver 10,000 houses is going to need 4 or 5 ministries working together in tandem. To deal with the whole question of resolving the water issues, we'll need another 3 or 4 ministries working in tandem. To deal with healthcare and chronic NCDs will require another 3 or 4 ministries. So what we're trying to do is to break down these walls and these empires and recognize that, set the goal, look, all of us in this together. And I am not absolving my ministry in finance, nor the AG's ministry, nor none of this, because what we find, and we've been saying it, we've started to deconstruct a lot of these systems. When we came in, you couldn't get a police certificate of character in under 6 weeks. You can't pay for none of these things that you're doing and paying online. So there's been changes, but with the best will in the world, COVID took away 2 years from this government. Straight talk. And therefore we had 19 months without COVID, and now what have we had? This is now May. We've now had 29 months with COVID. 19 months without COVID, 29 months with COVID. And all we've said is that having to clean up, we want the opportunity to build. But I'm speaking and I'm really saying to Bajans, we got to do this together. If we can do this together, if we can establish a few things that we need to do to become world class. How many of you have heard of the citizenship module? It's the National Transformation Initiative. Just under 15,000 Bajans take it. Why? Because we need to begin to understand what are the things that we must do. That excellence matters, that integrity matters, that caring about people matters, that transparency matters. All of them is fancy buzzwords, but what it comes down to, Reverend Crawford, what does it come down to? That in a school, when a child go and take up somebody's lunch, what they're doing is wrong. When you thief product or you thief time, it is still what? Thieving. And both are still what? Wrong. And when you see somebody suffering, don't laugh at them and talk about them. Go and do what? Was the Good Samaritan? You understand what I'm saying? We need to get back to some basics. And if we do that, and we set the few goals that we need to do, then believe you me. And this notion, we lost a decade and a half with our young people. We are reaping what we sowed. You cannot abandon all the youth projects for 10 years, replace them with summer camps and Easter camps that just more about paying people to cater, and then you don't have the young people involved in cricket or volleyball or swimming or anything. You don't. When last you see a dance group? When last you see a new drumming group? When last you see any of those things that we are accustomed to when we grow up? And what does the devil do? Find work for who? I beg you do. We understand? So that I can't do it on my own, Santa can't do it on her own, Dale can't do it on his own, the government can't do it on his own, the church can't do it on his own, the family can't do it on his own. But guess what? Together, we can do so and turn this country around. And there's certain things that we cannot change. We can't change the climate crisis, but we can prepare for it. We can't change the fact that sun is come down and night is go, but we work then to suit. And if we need to do flexi time for certain people, then we can adapt to those new realities. But what we must not do is stand still, be frightened, and do nothing, abuse, or complain. That's not going to help anybody. So let's work together. I think this evening, I want to thank all who have come out. We've heard concerns genuinely expressed. We've heard you. This is what active citizenship is about. And I want to thank the people of St. Joseph for yet again leading the way and ensuring that Barbadians can understand what democracy is. It is not by accident that you gave the country the father of democracy. And we are thankful to the people of St. Joseph for that. Because we talk about voting as if it is a foreign thing. 71 years ago, 11 is when people got the right to vote for the first time in this country without having to own property. But go and turn on CNN tonight. Go and turn on MSNBC. And you see in the great United States of America, people fighting for the right to vote because they're redistricting boundaries. And they're turning around and telling people that if you get a criminal conviction, you can't go and vote. And all kinds of reasons. Or if you can't pass a literacy test, or all these kinds of things. And we have that right here for 71 years. We take it for granted, but like with most things, if you take it for granted, you lose it. I want the people of Barbados, good, bad, or ugly, let us keep talking. Because once we are talking, we can always find common ground. And once we find common ground, we claim it, get up, and move again. We will not get exactly where we want to, when we want to, especially in this world, but we can get a lot further from where we are. We have come too far to go back, and once we have the resolve, we shall make it. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much for those important words, Prime Minister. I'm happy that St. Joseph was the start of this exercise. On behalf of the government side, let me thank all of you, all of my constituents who have come out. I know that there are a few of you who had some questions, who didn't get a chance to go to the mic, but I hope that some of the questions that were asked by other people were relevant to you. Our next stop will be St. John. No, that doesn't mean that you all get to go to St. John. We gotta leave that for the St. John people. But I have to say that I'm pleased that a number of individuals from other parts of Barbados have shown interest in what we've started here, and that you've taken the trouble to join us. Once again, thank you ever so much for joining us. Thank you for your support. To our large online audience, you've been great. Just remember that we need you to exercise a little bit of patience, because we can't do all of these things at the same time. But I guarantee you, we'll get them done in good time. Good night. God bless you. Travel home safely.